mentioned in the previous chapter a little bit of a time hop from 539 to 521, the building of the second temple that is accomplished. But what we don't have in that chapter, and haven't had yet in the first 6 chapters of the book, is the author of the book, the person who the book is named after. And finally, here in chapter 7, he is introduced to us, all. Continue with Ezra Perek Zayin. V'achar hadvar ma'ile b'malchut Melech Paras Ezra ben Sariah ben Azariah ben Chilkiah. After these events, during the reign of King Artaxerxes, so here we have a time jump, approximately 70 or so years to the time, and we introduce Ezra, who is told to us, we're going to tell about his lineage. He's the son of Sariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Chilkiah, lots of Yaz and Yaz and Yaz, which is interesting because Ezra is short for Azariah. The name Ezra, we know, lots of people name Ezra, probably all of us, but Ezra is really short for Azariah. His grandfather was named Azariah. Sounds like he was Ashkenazi. Maybe his grandfather was still alive. Maybe he was Sephardi. Continue in verse 2. Ben Shalom, ben Sadok, ben Achituv, ben Amariah, ben Azariah, ben Miriot, ben Zorachia, ben Uzi, ben Buki, ben Avishua, ben Pinchas, ben Elazar, ben Aaron, HaKohen, Harosh. So we go back many generations to tell us who is this Ezra. He's not just a regular guy. He is a descendant of Aaron. We've spoken about in this book, speak about the books of the Second Temple period. Yichus, lineage is very, very important. Who are the real Jews? Not those Samaritans who want to help us rebuild the Second Temple. These are the real Jews. This is the descendant of David, right? The Yeshua, a few generations, 75 years earlier, was there when the second Beit HaMikdash as the Kohen Gadol. Zerubbabel, who was the descendant of King David, who Haggai said would become a great king. It never materialized. But right, we're going back. We're constantly talking about David and Shlomo and going back to the long history. And so here too, we're going to tell you who Ezra and why Ezra is so great. Well, Ezra is a descendant of Aharon. He is a Kohen. And we're told, in case you didn't know who he was, who Ezra? Alami Bavel. This is Ezra who came up from Babylon. V'hu sofer mahir b'torat Moshe. Asher natan Adonai lo Yisrael v'yitin lo hamelech ki yad Adonai Elohav alav kol bakashato. This is Ezra who came up from Babylon. He was a scribe. He was an expert in the scroll of Moshe, which the God of Israel gave to Israel, and the king gave him permission to enforce it, to be in charge and would act and do that which Ezra asked. And here's something very significant. Ezra is a transformational, transitional figure. Ezra, up to Ezra, was really about prophets. We saw earlier in this book, until the prophets come along and push the Jews to build the temple, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know. But then Haggai and Zechariah is described in this book, is described in their book, say to them, the time has come to build the temple. They are the inspiration. And 75 years later, there's no longer a Haggai. He's passed away. There's no longer a Zechariah, presumably there's no longer a Malachi. Prophecy is ended. Ezra is not a Navi. He is a Sofer. He is a Chacham. He is somebody who's an expert in the book and how to read the book and what it should say and how to explain the book. It's a movement from a prophetic Judaism to a rabbinic Judaism, a scroll Judaism, a Judaism that's really based in the scroll of the law. Now, it's not the first time. We have references, of course, to Torah Moshe, to this book of Devarim many times earlier in the First Temple period. We have, for example, Amatzia quotes the Torah. We have Yoshiyahu with his great Pesach after they find the Torah scroll that had been ignored, and he gets the Jews to come back and to do Pesach. But none of them are like Ezra. He places the Torah as the center place, the reading of the Torah, the learning of the Torah. And that's why the Talmud in other places says things like Ezra was the one who said we're going to read Torah every Monday and Thursday. It ascribes it to the scribe, to the Sofer, Ezra. Now let's read what happens. Vayalu in verse 7. Mibnei Yisrael min hakonim v'levim v'shorim v'shoarim v'netinim al Yerushalayim b'shnat sheva la'artach shasta hamelach. So in the 7th year of the reign of King Artaxerxes, Ezra led Kohanim and Leviim, singers and gatekeepers towards Jerusalem. This is like, we talk about Aliyah, the first Aliyah, the second Aliyah with the modern Zionist movement. So we had the first Aliyah back in 539. And here we have the second Aliyah, some 85 years later. The temple has already been built. They arrive in Jerusalem in the 5th month. In the 7th year of the king, in the first day of the first month, they journeyed up from Babylon, first day of what we would call Nisan. And in the fifth month, they arrive in Jerusalem thanks to the benevolent care of the God, Ki Ezra. And why did this all happen? Because Ezra, in verse 10, we'll see a lot in the book of Divrayim. Ezra dedicated himself to study, to being doresh, to explaining, to studying, to looking into, to understand the Torah Hashem, and then to do it and to teach it to Bnei Israel, to teach them the rules and the laws that are written in the Torah. And now we go to a different way. V'zeh parshegen hanishtavan asher natan hamelech artach shasta leEzra Kohen sofer divrei mitzvot Adonai v'chukav al Yisrael. And now we're going to go from the Hebrew. We're going from the Ezra, from the Hebrew, from the scribe to a letter that was written by King Artaxerxes to support Ezra. And to get the Jewish people and others to listen to this great scholar, to this great scribe, and to follow the commandments of the Torah of the God of Israel. Artach Shasta, by the fourth time I pronounced it properly, perhaps Melech Malchaya leEzra Kahana Sefer Data di Eloah Shmaya Gemir V'Chaenet. And so this is the letter. Artaxerxes, king of kings, writes to Ezra, the priest, the scholar in the law of God in heaven, and so forth. And now, what does it say? Minei sim te'em tichol mitnadev malchuti min ama Yisrael chahani v'levi lemahach Yerushalayim imach yahach. I give an order to anyone in my kingdom who is of the people of Israel, whether they be priests or Levites or just regular Jews, who feels compelled to go to Jerusalem, they should go with you. Ki kibeldi min kadam malcha v'shivat yatuni shliach v'kara al Yehud v'Yerushalayim b'dat Elohach div yadech. You are commissioned by the king and his advisors to regulate, to have control over Yehuda, over Yerushalayim, according to the law of your God, which is in your care. You are the expert, and you should be in charge of the laws, and it should be run in your ways, with your laws. And to bring offerings of silver and gold, which the king and his advisors made to the God of Israel who is dwelling in Jerusalem. We are donating from our own wealth because we believe in the importance, in the power of your God, the God who resides in your dwelling in Jerusalem. Whatever silver and gold that you find throughout the province of Babylon, together with free will offerings that the people and the priests will give you for the house of their God, which is in Jerusalem, right? Those should also go. Kol kibel dina aspara tekana bekaspa dina torin dichrin imrin uminchatein v'niskein v'tukrav himo al midbecheya di beit Elohecham di Yerushalayim. You shall therefore, right, without waiting, dispatch, acquire the money, the bulls, the rams, the lamb, right? Take that money, get the meal offerings, get the libation, acquire everything that you need to offer sacrifices on the altar of the house of your God in Jerusalem. So they respect, it's not his God, it's not Artaxerxes' God. He has respect. He's a polytheist. He can have respect for multiple gods. This is the God of Ezra, and he wants to see that God served and thinks that it will benefit his kingdom. He's not doing it out of his own benevolence. Umadi alach vi'al achach yeta bishar kaspo dahav lemavad karut elohim tavdun. Whatever you wish to do with the leftover silver and gold, you and your kinsmen may do it according to the will of your God. Right? Don't go and buy a Porsche. It's saying do presumably what's right for your temple, for your God. Uma'anye in verse 19, the vessels, the vessels for the service of the house of your God that are given to you, delivered to the God in Jerusalem. Ushar chashchut beit Elohach di yipalach lemnetan tinaten beit min beit genzei malk, and all the other needs of your house of God that fall to you to supply, do so from the royal treasury, right? You can take. We are donating for your project. Umine ana artach shasta malka sim te'em lechol gizbaria di ba'avar nara di kol di yishalom chun Ezra chahana safar data di Eloha shmaya asparna yitabed. And I, king of Artaxerxes, for my part, I issue an order to all of the treasures in the province beyond the river, and whatever requests Ezra, the priest, the scholar of the law of God of heaven, makes you should be done without waiting. There were a lot of problems for the Jews on the western bank of the Jordan River with the Samaritans and with the different leaders there. And here, Artaxerxes is letting it know that he is in charge and they should listen. Ezra is his representative. Ad ksaf karen mea v'ad chintun koren mea v'ad chmar beitin mea v'ad beitin mishach mea u'malachti lo katav. up to the sum. How much you have to give? Up to 100 talents of silver, and 100 core of wheat, and 100 baths of wine, and 100 baths of oil, and salt without limit. Kol di min ta'am. We're in verse 23. Shema yitabad adar zarda leveta lashmai dilama lahavi ktsafa malchut malcha uvenohu. Whatever is by the order of the God of heaven must be carried out quickly, diligently, for the house of the God of heaven, or else wrath will come upon the king and his sons. Do this. I am worried. Ulachol mahodin di kol chahanu levia zamaria taraya netanya palchi beit Elohad dinam minda below va'alach lo shalit lemermaya Elohim. And we further advise you this is not permissible to impose tributes, poll tax, or land tax upon any priest, Levite, singer, gatekeeper, temple servant, or other servant of this house of God. When they're coming through your land, you can't collect taxes from them. This is all going to the temple. Va'ant Ezra kachachama Elohach ti biadech min shvatin u'diin di lahon. And you, Ezra, due to your divine wisdom, you have worked hard to be doresh the Torah. You have a lot of divine wisdom. What should you do? You should appoint officials, magistrates, and judges to judge all the people in the province beyond the river who know the laws of your God, and to teach those who do not know them. And whoever let anyone who does not obey the law of your God, the law of the king, be punished without waiting, whether by death, corporal punishment, confiscation of possessions, or imprisonment. There are all sorts of different punishments. And if you defy Ezra, that is defying me, and you will be punished. And that is the words of Artaxerxes, that he gives this proclamation to Ezra. Ezra, you're going to be in charge. Nobody's going to mess with you. And Ezra completes the chapter. Ezra's a man of faith, and he says, Baruch Adonai Elohei Avotenu, Asher Natan Kazod Belev HaMelech L'Va'er Beit Adonai Asher B'Yerushalayim. Blessed is God of our fathers, who put in the mind of the king to glorify the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. Va'alai hitachesed lifnei HaMelech v'yotzav l'chol tzarei HaMelech HaGiburim v'ani etchazakti ki al Adonai Elohai alai ve'kapsa miYisrael rashim la'alot imi. And God gave kindness towards me, right, through the king. The king's counselors and officers were kind to me. The king's military officers were kind to me, and therefore, for my part, what did I do? I was strengthened to go and to gather Jews, to go and leaders, not just the Nebuchs, but the important Jews, to go up to Jerusalem and to fulfill this mission. Something that's interesting to point out, very interesting and very different than we have in the earlier books. Back in the book of, for example, Yeshaya, we have Yeshaya and Chizkiah. Chizkiah, wants to make a treaty with the Babylonians, and questions about should he make treaty with the Egyptians, and who's going to defend him from the Assyrians, etc., etc. And what Yeshaya says is, you can only rely upon God. That's the message of the first temple. That's oftentimes some of the fights between the prophets and the kings. Prophets say you have to rely upon God alone. In this book, the idea of relying upon God alone is not God or a king. In this book, God works through the Gentile kings. God works through Cyrus. Cyrus is the Mashiach, he's the Messiah, he's the appointed one of God to allow the Jews to go back and start to build the temple. Artaxerxes here is not against God. God is giving the wisdom to Artaxerxes. So it's a very, very different message. It's not in Israel alone, but it's rather when we have a relationship with these other countries, with these kings, with these important people, and they are helping us. It's not that we are relying upon them and not upon God. It's that we understand that God, in a sense, is working through them, which allows us to be successful. Very different message than the one that is in the first temple between the prophets and the kings.